They were hungry for education. That's what we heard regarding the thousands of matriculants that stormed the University of Johannesburg, hoping to apply for a place at this prestigious institution of higher learning. Well, tragically, a parent was killed in a stampede that injured 17 others, and this incident has forced South Africans to start asking pertinent questions about higher education and training. Now, the Ministry of Higher Education and Training has released a green paper in which some of these issues will be dealt with. On Business Spotlight, we ask, are there enough opportunities available to South Africa's youth? Now, joining us in this discussion is Ahmed Esop. He is the CEO of the Council on Higher Education, as well as Ngako Selamolela. He is the president of SASCO, that's the South African Students' Congress. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Ahmed, let's start with you. There's a perception out there that university education is elitist, it's expensive, and doesn't respond to the needs of a growing economy like ours. How do you respond?
Well, look, university education clearly is limited in the sense that unlike the school system where we are obliged to provide a place for every child, we have a limited number of universities. We have 23 public higher education institutions. So in that sense, it could be argued that it's elitist because not everybody who completes schooling will necessarily get a place at university, which is partly to do with the fact that one has to take account both that it's costly to fund higher education, the issues about whether an academic education is suitable for every individual who completes schooling. The issue of responsiveness, I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case. There's often a perception, particularly in the business community, that graduates coming out of higher education are not suitable for the workplace. But often what the business community wants is that somebody who leaves university will be able to walk in to the business environment and fit in immediately. But that's not what universities are meant to do. They're meant to give you a general training. And if you then want specific training that's linked to the needs of the business, particular business, they have to provide you with additional training. You know, it's similar if you take the professions. If you become a lawyer, the university gives you the academic and theoretical introduction to the law. But how you function as a lawyer, how you write a legal document and so forth, you get taught when you're doing your articles in a law firm. So the university can't be expected to do all of that. So it's not so much an issue that our universities are not preparing our young people, but there are a whole lot of areas where, because of the nature of the school system, we're not producing enough young people with the kinds of technical backgrounds, particularly in mathematics and science, who can then go into those aspects of higher education for which there's a dearth in the economy.
All right. Now let's talk to Ngako here. Ngako, we know you've been, as an organization, pushing for free education, pushing for more access. And what happened at the University of Johannesburg just shortly after matric results were released is a clear indication of the needs of South Africa's youth. What does your organization say about the same issues?
I'll say that there's a sign that the university education in South Africa caters for the needs of elite classes, the middle class and the class that owns means of production in the country. A lot of working class students from both the township and the countryside have been excluded in higher education in South Africa. It's a pattern that has been reproduced under democratic South Africa, an apartheid colonial pattern of access into higher education. Probably also reproducing apartheid type spatial geography and economy. So I do not think that this is something that the country did not necessarily expect. It's something that we knew that at one stage this is going to happen. Unfortunately, the Department of Higher Education is also releasing enrollment capping every year, which forces university to cap enrollment of first-year students and those who have been in the system, to exclude both those who want to access and those who are already in the system. Obviously, this is done by various means: academic exclusion of students, exclusion on the basis of the inability to afford education. And as an organization, we are saying,
just to cut you in there, Ahmed, how much of this is reality? I mean, this is the rhetoric we're listening from the student movement, and it's almost populist with respect to yourself, sir. But how much of this is actually true?
Well, look, let me say firstly, I don't think it's quite correct to say that poor and working class young people don't get into higher education. We don't know enough about the social composition of higher education. to be able to make such a generalized statement. It's quite clear that in general in higher education the middle classes benefit, but that's also got to do with the nature of the school system. That the schools in the poor areas, in rural areas, remain problematic, they're in crisis, they don't produce enough young people coming out with the school qualifications at matric to be able to enter higher education. So I think there's a bigger problem of the education system. I think the notion, I think Marco is right, there is enrollment capping, but you have to cut your cloth according to what you can
Do the
afford.
universities have the capacity? The Green Paper talks about doubling university admissions in some years to come.
Yeah. Currently, there are just under 900,000 students in higher education. The Green Paper proposes to increase it, as you say, it's not quite doubling, but to 1.5 million by 2030. The capacity doesn't exist at the moment. And the institutions are bursting to the seams. To give you an example, in the last 3 years, enrollments in higher education have gone up by 14%. The staff
with the same infrastructure.
With the same infrastructure. The staffing,
previously.
I'll give you the staffing has gone up by 7%. Okay, so something has to give.
Marco, what is the student movement? What would you like to see in terms of numbers of students that enroll in universities? Are you happy with the 1.5 million that the minister is?
We're quite not happy because if you check the trend of in growth of our population, by 2030 we might be exactly at the same percentage that access higher education currently by that time, given the fact that our population is growing very fast. We are probably one of the highest in youth population in the world. So that essentially means that we might be drawn to the same problem in 2030. The issue to me is that the democratic government has not been able to provide and expand higher education. It has inherited a colonial type of education system and sustained it. And that is what the problem is. The problem that we have with enrollment capping is that we inherited these universities as they are. The same colleges of further education and training have been inherited as they were. And all we did was to say now students from various backgrounds of various racial groupings can access this.
Okay, let's move the discussion a bit further, Ahmed. The solutions, obviously the Green Paper is there. Capacity is an issue. Universities would need to build more, in order for them to accommodate the influx. Are you happy with some of the proposals in the Green Paper?
Yeah, I think the Green Paper is a good start. I think one has to recognize, firstly, I think it's important to state this, that we will never have a mass higher education system. That is, where everybody who leaves school, no matter how good the schooling system is, it doesn't exist anywhere in the world. That everybody who gets out of school gets into higher education.
But why is there this understanding that a child has to go to university?
Well, because I think it's the nature of the labor market, particularly under apartheid. Under apartheid, as you know, there was job reservation. So for many technical occupations and professions, black people were precluded from entering those. So the only options if you were a young black person was you became a teacher or a nurse, or you went to university. So we have to change that mindset. You need to get people to begin to understand that there are other opportunities, which is, I think, what the minister is trying to do with the Green Paper, by saying we need to expand the further education and training system. And there are currently problems with that system, because at the moment, it's also because it doesn't really give you an alternative to schooling. A lot of what gets done in the FET colleges is the equivalent of matric. So if you've left school and not getting into university, well, why would you go to an FET college to get an equivalent certificate?
That's right.
As matric? I
think it's all about the perceptions. Marco, maybe you can help us here. What does the student movement say about FET colleges? What are you telling your constituents with regards to FET colleges? Do they only want technicons and universities? What is the feeling on the ground?
That's not true. The reality of the matter is that there are a lot of students who go to FET colleges. And they do that not because they are excluded in institutions of higher learning like universities, but because they believe that the skills they need they can be acquired in FET colleges. we're an organization that even organizes FET students for that matter. So we cannot discourage people to go to FET colleges, but the reality of the matter is that FET colleges have been previously reserved for for skilling white laborers. That means that there is a low capacity in those colleges.
I think the issues are very complex, and the time that we have is very little. But just in closing, Ahmed, just concluding remarks from you, the way forward.
Well, I think in relation to the last point around the late applications and so forth, I think we need to look, and the Minister has announced, and the Council has given advice on the establishment of a central application system, which would address a lot of the issues that Mark was raising about having to apply to more than one institution, the cost of applications, and so forth.
And the time period, do you think this is possible in our lifetime?
Well, look, I think it currently exists in KwaZulu-Natal. The 4 universities there have a system in place. I think to create a national system will take 5 or 6 years, because you need to create the infrastructure, the telecommunications infrastructure and so forth. So I think if the higher education sector, and they lukewarm, the support for the idea is lukewarm from the universities themselves. Nationally, if they were to support the idea, then I think we can get it off the ground.
Closing remarks, Mwako?
The way forward, I would say that government needed to look into the question that we have been raising all the years, and we will continue raising, of introducing education tax for provision of free education that will assist us to expand existing universities, that will assist us to expand the FET sector, that will be sufficient resources for establishment of new universities, that we are campaigning very hard that they be established in Mpumalanga and the Northern Cape, that will also be sufficient resource capacity for students to go to school despite their class position.
Okay, so we are going to have to end it at that stage. Thank you very much to my guest, Ahmed Mwako.